Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators. I hope you are having a fabulous Thursday, October 17th, wherever you might be tuning in from. I see everywhere from Pilot Mound to Vancouver. It's awesome to see you guys all here. We're gonna have a little bit more fun at Trudeau, Lord Farquaad, and the Liberals' expense again today. The dumpster fire saga continues. It's only growing in heat. It's going to be an interesting rundown to the U.S. Election on November 5th, and I think we're going to be ripe for all kinds of shenanigans. And right now, the Trudeau charade is the young global brats are imploding. You know, I know you guys have been listening to me for years now. Some of you saying that insanity was, unsustainable. I think we're getting to the point where even some of the freeloaders on the liberal cult Borg organization are seeing the writing on the wall. So I think you guys are going to have a little bit of fun with tonight's show for the most part. And there's going to be a couple of real big reality checks a little bit later on in the show that are going to leave you guys with some serious things to think about, given some of the narratives. But we're going to start with, of course, as usual, Substack, guys. We're getting more and more people are getting plugged in over there. Something like 970 folks are over there already now. That's where the gold is. Every time we do a show here, I publish the next day on Substack, and I provide all of the links and references and graphics, and you can catch up on the show. Everything is here, so that you guys can take full advantage of it and use these tools, right? And there's all kinds of ways to get plugged into the community. What we're doing here, you can share the Substack. You can buy me a coffee here from this platform. You can learn about our Patriot Switch partners there. You can book an appointment with Bryce from there. You can get plugged into our other platforms from there. So yeah, this goes out every single weekday, I guess, following every single weekday's show, and it's free. Like everything else, 100% free, no subscription required. And you can find that platform here on whatsupcanada.org as well. And this is how we've kind of prepared ourselves and our community to stay connected to the stuff they need to know as the insanity and the clamor carries on. So what are we going to start with today? First thing off the top, guys, I'm going to refer you guys over to Dan Knight, who published a really long and well done explanation. Dan's been on the show here as well. He's over in British Columbia, and I like the way he unpacks stuff very thoroughly in the style of Blacklocks. So very good work from Dan, and he's published a piece here on the Liberals' Budget Officer's latest release on its economic and fiscal outlook for October of 2024. And if you thought things were bad, brace yourself. The Trudeau regime is leading Canada into financial ruin. This isn't just a bad fiscal year, it's a long train wreck. He explains it all in depth on the platform there. The links will be in the Substack, of course. And to break it right down in its simplest form, this is what I'm kind of starting to show off, is this is not incompetence at the Liberal hands of the Liberal Party. These guys, they are the WEF demolition squad. Trudeau promised the first post-nation state. They just left off the WEF Fourth Reich part of the first post-nation state. So it's not incompetence, it's by design. The young gullible brats Klaus was so proud of have done their job well as they see it. And this is why it's so frustrating for us who don't want to be one of these homogenous clones in the New World Order after a great reset. They think we're crazy. They think they're doing a good job. They really think, they genuinely believe in their Marxist New World agenda. I know that's hard to fathom once, if you're still stuck in the matrix. And there are people that, they may not believe it, but they have profited from it for a very long time. And this is kind of where we're getting into the funner stuff. So check out Dan's work on that. If you're not following on X, you can get plugged in on X. I think I got a link here for that. Find me on X. I share all of this stuff on there as well. But there's some shenanigans going on X as well. I saw the Wait Robert podcast lost 1,000 subscribers today. I lost 43, and I watched it drop in a split second in front of my eyes. So interesting stuff, but kind of the rumor scuttlebutt is that it might be bots that they're removing. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on that. But so far, X has been really good so far about sharing information or allowing information to be shared. So get plugged in on there. You'll find Dan's work on there as well. And the next fun story is Trudeau faces resignation demands from Liberal MPs who are holding a massive team meeting next week with the Prime Minister. They are expected to formally demand that Justin Trudeau resign. Buckle up, things are about to get fun. I tend to agree with the Pleb reporter on that assessment at this point, particularly given some of the other breaking news today. So, we got a little bit of it all today, folks. This is a clip from the CTV, and I'm going to see if you folks notice what I noticed out of this recent round of former cabinet Liberal ministers who won't be seeking re-election. And that's an fundamental terminology to some a little bit more down the road.
From Ottawa, CTV News is learning several key ministers in the Trudeau cabinet will not be seeking re-election. CTV's Mike Lecouture is standing by with more details. Mike, good morning. What are you learning?
Good morning, Marcia. We have a list of 4 now cabinet ministers who have basically said they are not going to be running in the next election. Let's start with that list. Marie-Claude Bibeau, she is the Minister of National Revenue. There have been rumors that she wants to run for the mayor of Sherbrooke. That is her hometown. It looks like she will not be running in the next federal election. Then you have Philomena Tassi. She is the Minister of Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. She has written a letter and put out a statement online basically saying that it is time for her to spend more time with her family, and it's a bittersweet decision. Also in that note, she did name Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and say, I wish him the very best now and in the future. I believed in him in 2015, and I believe in him now. However, she is not going to seek re-election. The other one, Carla Qualtrough. She has been with the Prime Minister since 2015 in cabinet. She's the Minister of Sport and Physical Activity. She is not seeking re-election. And the fourth is Dan Vandel, Minister of Northern Affairs. This now, Marcia, brings a total of 6 cabinet ministers who have decided not to run in the next election. You'll remember that Pablo Rodriguez last month had announced that he was leaving cabinet as transport minister to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party in Quebec. And then Seamus O'Regan, who is also someone who's a personal friend of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, announcing that he will not be.
I'm going to remind you guys of a couple more here in just a minute, and that makes this a fake news story.
Seeking re-election as well. And of course, Marcia, this just adds fuel to the fire of whether or not the Prime Minister will have to have some sort of shakeup in cabinet. And clearly now he will have to, if they're not running in the next election, because this is what happens as we approach an election. The Prime Minister likely goes around and has been asking some of his cabinet ministers, who's with me, who's in, who's out, who will not be running in the next election. And then after that, then has to decide who he's going into battle with, essentially, into that next election with. Interesting of note as well, here in our bureau, the Parliamentary Bureau, we've been putting out questions to the cabinet ministers as far or as recent as 2 weeks ago. Marie-Claude Bibeau was the only one who answered undecided whether or not she was going to be running in the next election. All of them have said that they will. So a little bit of a surprise now that we are getting 4 of these cabinet ministers who are saying they're not going to be seeking re-election.
And Mike, just a quick thought from you, please.
Before I lose them off the tip of my tongue, they forgot John McKay. They forgot Mr. Erskine Smith, who sponsored Bill C-293, who we're going to be hearing directly from here right shortly. But a comment here from that I cannot help but agree with is that this is the straw that broke the Liberals' back. I agree with you on that, Mouth. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the ripple effects. This is just the beginning, folks, just the beginning.
On the timing of this reporting, we understand that a number of MPs are going to get together, potentially go public in the coming days, calling on the Prime Minister to step aside.
Yeah, this has been bubbling since, it seems, last Friday, when there is some sort of a movement within caucus right now. And Vashi Kapelos, our chief political correspondent, reporting yesterday that they do plan to meet and basically confront the Prime Minister at caucus on Wednesday. And that is a closed-door meeting where a number of them will talk to the Prime Minister, be frank with him. It is supposed to be a private conversation. All conversations in caucus are supposed to be private, but certainly we are hearing that some of them who are designated to feel comfortable to be able to speak for a bit of a larger group will voice those concerns and tell the Prime Minister that they believe that it's time for him to reconsider his leadership and to really go in a different direction.
Michael Couture, thanks for that.
All right. So now, given some of the things that we've been covering over the last little while, particularly the NDP, who was desperately waiting for this new pharmacare bill to get through so that they could cut all of their needs away from the Liberal Party. So there may be another move for a non-confidence vote, because I believe some of the stuff, the other stuff that's going to be piling on to this Liberal dumpster fire, and we're going to cover some of that in a few minutes, is this is just the beginning of the exodus of the how did Carol put it here, rats jumping the ship. There's a law, I think, that they made up that if we refer to them as animals and things like that, that we can now go to jail. This is part of more of C-63, I think, but it's written in there that we're not allowed to refer to them in any kind of animals or derogatory terms, lest it be judged a crime. So the beginning of the exodus of the Liberal Party has begun ahead of the U.S. election. Now, here's an important point to think about, folks. All of those now 4, 6, 8 that we know of for sure are all what Trudeau would call, if he were labeling them, old stock Canadians. None of the Liberals that have been imported as pets by Lord Farquaad that come from the third world shiteholes, those ones aren't resigning. It's the old stock Canadian ones that are jumping the ship. And on that note, let's hear from one of the other ones that is also not seeking re-election, Mr. Nathaniel Erskine Smith. The guy that wrote Bill C-293. You guys remember Bill C-293? I got to pop this up here just to get everybody to think about adding this to some of the things that are needs to be done in discussing this. This is another one of these. Well, you guys can judge for yourself what you think he is, where his ideologies lie. But the important part of this, if you're not familiar with Bill C-293, go back. I'll republish this. I just restacked this where lawyer Lisa and I broke it down in no uncertain terms. If you didn't catch this and some of the other shows that we've done on C-293, you really need to get a hold of those. But since I'm banking on the fact that most of you folks here are fully aware and of the implications of this insane bill that this meat muppet wrote just before he dropped it, the bomb of it going through, getting close to going through the Senate, Trudeau's stacked Senate. He's jumping ship, knowing what this bill fully means, but we're making him nervous, folks. We have got him out here now trying to do a promotional video, and this dropped 8 hours ago from this Meat Muppet in Ottawa. And I want you guys to hear for yourselves how insulting he is, how condescending he is. All right, listen to this and tell me what you think.
Let's turn to threats to our farming, because a Dalhousie professor, known for defending big grocers amidst record food inflation and who believes the woke movement is influencing our food policies, well, he describes Bill C-293 as a major, major threat. He writes that it has the potential to significantly expand governmental powers in response to future pandemics and warns that it could lead to government mandating the consumption of vegetable proteins. These are dangerous times if you believe the dark corners of the internet or meat lobbyists. Of course, I know it doesn't do these things because I
am a meat lobbyist. I like to eat.
It doesn't grant any new governmental authorities at all. And don't worry, Aunt Kim. It won't force anyone.
Liar, gaslighting,
Instead,
liar.
The bill requires the government to develop a plan to prepare for and to take steps to reduce the risk of a future pandemic, to table that plan in Parliament for accountability, and to update it every few years so the issue doesn't fall by the wayside as it did after SARS. The scary vegan section, well, that requires the feds to consult with provinces and ensure there are measures in place to manage and reduce pandemic risk, including in industrial animal agriculture. The World Bank calls the overuse of antibiotics a public health threat and pegs AMR deaths at hundreds of thousands per year already. Now, Canada's taking action, and that work should be updated as needed. We also know that a high density of genetically similar animals increases infectious disease risk. We know that. That's just the evidence. Avian and swine flus aren't new, and expert reports have laid this out clearly and then some. So what does the bill do? It calls for regulating commercial activities to reduce pandemic risk, including industrial animal agriculture. Now, I had biosecurity measures in mind, which shouldn't be controversial. Global travel is a key pandemic risk too, and no one is talking about ending either animal agriculture or travel.
This guy's afraid of his shadow.
It's about managing and reducing risks. Now, here's where it gets real scary. The bill suggests we should promote commercial activities that help to reduce pandemic risk, like alternative proteins. This, as I've come to learn from experts like far-right MP Cheryl Gallant, is apparently a communist code word for eating bugs.
Alternative protein is just a far left.
See that mocking and condescending piece of garbage?
And their desire to have us all eat bugs.
Of course, there are plant-based alternatives already common, which matter a lot to Canada's pulse industry. And there's cellular agriculture too, where we see products in Singapore and better industry support in the US and other countries. No one is going to force your kids to eat bugs.
We should not be expecting our kids to eat bugs.
Okay. We either meet growing global demand for protein in an unsustainable way at great risk to public health, or through a combination of
Eating meat is a great risk to public health. This is what he's actually trying to sell. What a condescending, lying piece of crap.
biosecure meat alongside an expansion of alternative proteins. More choices, no mandates. Lastly, as we saw with mink farming in the pandemic, some activities have little economic value and come with disproportionate infectious disease risk.
How many mink farms are left, guys? What the hell is he even talking about anymore?
That's why BC and many other jurisdictions around the world ban the practice. So the bill calls for phasing out those activities that
the animal huggers phased that out. They weren't phased out because they were a pandemic problem, you meat muppet.
Reasonably disproportionately contribute to pandemic risk, including activities with high risk species. And that's it. That is the apparent end of animal agriculture as we know it. And here I thought I'd made it pretty clear in the House that I was open to reasonable amendments.
Now he's going to
There are
defend
amendments
himself.
I have no doubt that ought to be made, to add things, to remove things, to adjust language. I'm certainly open to amending the legislation based on the details. Like I said, I was open to that amendment too. Again, I don't propose that it's perfect, and I would expect amendments are going to be forthcoming. And I want to say amendments should be forthcoming. Make sure that we at all times focus on what is best on the science when it comes to prevention and preparedness. The only reason we didn't see amendments,
he doesn't know
in the House
anything
as I
about
called
science,
for,
quite
is because
obviously.
the Conservatives filibustered the thing. I am still open to reasonable changes, of course, and to working across the aisle. I am deeply worried that any sense of reasonable disagreement is disappearing, not just to partisan gamesmanship, that's not new, but to an online ecosystem that is driven by conspiracies and grifters, further amplified and dwarfed by foreign interference, all leading politicians by the nose. Let's turn to...
Right? Because we're all just a bunch of dumb hillbilly hicks, and we're all just conspiracy theorists. We don't know our ass from a hole in the ground. We aren't intelligent enough to read the damn bill ourselves or understand the implications of these broad spectrum, ideologically driven climate terrorism funding insanity. This is what this meat muppet is pitching and selling to Canadians, and you're stupid, dumb conspiracy theorist if you don't agree. So I don't know how many times we have to rant and rail on this, but I promise you, if we weren't getting under his skin, this dude was skating out the back door already. So the fact that he's doing this and dropping this right now is kind of conspicuous of how desperate these meat muppets really are. And I highly encourage this. This is an easy one to fight, guys. This bill is one of the easiest ones to read. It's only like 6 pages front to end. And when you get past the process decorum of it, it's actually pretty simple to read and understand. But this particular Substack that Lisa and I did, and we've done some others, is a great resource for continuing to get on the bandwagon of reality and give some of these meat muppets a reality check. So now this is the part you guys have all been waiting for. Are the RCMP getting closing in on Trudeau and some of his other scandals? We just listened to a whole bunch of lies from the Liberal Party. We've watched how they're imploding. Now we're going to listen to Michael Barrett. And when I went through this today, I thought I would just be looking for a little clip out of it. But outside of the last couple 3 minutes of campaign stumping, this was a brilliant speech given by Michael Barrett yesterday in the House. And I think everybody should hear this because it helps us refine what we need to be asking, the right questions, and continuing to put pressure on the right things. That's why we do this, to narrow down the news from the noise and make these meat muppets quiver, because we are getting more organized. So check out Michael Barrett for a little bit here, folks.
News, and it comes from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And this is, of course, dealing with this matter, this latest $400 million scandal facing this Liberal government. And the RCMP confirms that they are investigating this $400 million scandal of this Liberal Prime Minister that has paralyzed Parliament. But they also confirm that they have and are using the documents that have so far been turned over by the parliamentary law clerk. So this, of course, raises questions about, well, why was the government willing to turn over some of the documents, yet some departments refused outright? Some departments have said they're not even a part of the government, which is, of course, an absolutely incredible statement to hear from them. Now, I want to reference another bit of information about redacted records, or the absence of them. Now, the list of departments that didn't comply are typed in a very small typeface on this 11 by 17 sheet of paper, but one in particular stands out. It's the Department of Justice. More than 10,000 pages that they are not turning over. Why won't this Prime Minister's DOJ turn over these documents to the Congress?
Why?
What
Why?
is so damning inside
Why?
that while the RCMP confirms they have some of the documents, these Liberals and their co-conspirators aren't prepared to turn over the rest? What's in these documents? Canadians have a right to know.
What's in these documents? Why can't we have access to them? Why can't the Parliament have access to them? Because Canada deserves better and we need more justice. So this is a new hashtag I just put together today, folks, and I'm going to be starting to laser focus some of the correct questions with more justice attached to them. So this is how you find stuff, by clicking on hashtags, and you'll see everything else that's pumped in with that attached to it. So this is a great one, guys. Canada deserves better is another one that you're going to start seeing connected to more justice. But this is finally getting good. Pour salt on the wound, and we know where to push, right? So tally ho, Michael.
Oh, and as a matter of fact, that Liberal government has a legal obligation to turn them over. Now, it's not because I said so. It's because in Canada, we have a democracy, and a majority of democratically elected MPs used the powers that have been bestowed on this House of Commons to ensure that when a matter is of public interest, that the production of papers is absolute and it is unrestricted. Now, what could be more important to the institution of Parliament, to the protection of our democracy, than to make sure that when there's a matter involving more than 180 conflicts of interest, $400 million in this corruption scandal overseen by that Liberal Prime Minister and all of the...
Are you guys catching these numbers?
Especially the
These are numbers that are accurate that you can use.
In this saga that has
We're not
paralyzed
conspiracy
Parliament.
theorists.
Why won't they turn over those documents that are so important so that Canadians can get answers? Now, are we looking to be the judge, jury, and executioner in this place? No, we want to turn it over to the RCMP. And are the RCMP going to investigate because we told them to? No, the RCMP is investigating because they have reasonable grounds to believe that an offense under the criminal code has been committed, that it's in the public interest for them to investigate it, and they'll lay a charge if they believe that there's a reasonable prospect of conviction. Is that why? Is that why these Liberals are withholding all of these documents from all of these many departments? From the Atlantic Canadian Opportunity Agency, they're too afraid to turn over documents. Canada Revenue Agency.
Check out these agencies,
Canada
guys.
Northern Economic Development Agency. Foreign Affairs. Department of Housing. National Defense. National Resources.
Are all afraid to turn over documents.
On And on it goes. 10,000 pages alone from the Department of Justice. Now, we've seen before from these liberals what happens when the RCMP, they've said, well, what, normally we've heard the justice minister stand up and say, well, they'll get a production order and just knock on the door and say, turn over the documents. But the thing is about this liberal government and that liberal prime minister, the one who's been found guilty of breaking the law twice himself, along with his public safety minister found to have broken the law, the small business minister broke the law. So with that as the context, when the RCMP came in and knocked on his door, that prime minister's door in a case of a criminal matter, they said they couldn't turn over the documents because of cabinet confidence. So this is what's going to happen. This is the game that they want to play. They want this to go to committee, they say. But why? Is that because the documents will be tabled with the committee? No, it's to study the question of if the documents should be tabled. The House already ordered the production of the documents. So that's done. That's done. A majority of democratically elected members.
And they still say no.
Not one party with a minority of seats in this House and shrinking returns in every election and evaporating public support. That's not who gets to decide. The majority of democratically elected members, that's who. And that decision's been made. They must turn over the documents because it's the law. But that doesn't concern these liberals or that attorney general. Because what they want this to go to committee, and they want the police to come and say, hey, can you turn over those documents? You said if we brought a search warrant that you'd provide them. Sorry, we're afraid it's cabinet confidence. Here's to those 10,000 pages heavily redacted. That's the game that they're playing with our democracy. Makes you wonder if they're prepared to violate this law. What other laws will these liberals break? We've seen some broken, as I said before, by the prime minister, by the public safety minister, by the small business minister. And these liberals, when they got tired of being found guilty for breaking Canada's Conflict of Interest Act, the laws that are supposed to protect, exactly the kind of thing that led to $400 million in corruption in this latest expense scandal. They got tired of getting caught. So they appointed the public safety minister, he had been found guilty, of course, of breaking the Conflict of Interest Act and clam scam, awarding lucrative contracts to his family members. Again, liberal insiders, always their priority. They appointed his sister-in-law to be the ethics commissioner. Well, how convenient would that be? Thanksgiving dinner this weekend.
Only in Banana Canada, folks.
The stuffing. Also, could you look the other way on this latest conflict of interest?
I agree. Michael Barrett is one of the few that retains my faith in the political space.
But the production of these documents was ordered by the House. They, of course, wanted to go to committee to bury it. Now, the amendment.
We're not going to know until the dust settles, Laurie.
Extremely reasonable. The list of witnesses that we would want to testify to provide fulsome answers to committee is incredibly important. But we would be faced with another problem when we get there. And we will get to a point where the House can vote.
Whether we have faith in the system or not, it is one of the tools that is still available. And we have to engage in it to the fullest capacity that we have. Every tool in the toolbox right now, and this is just one of them, whether we have faith in it or not, we have to make it too big to steal. And so much of what's happening around the world is going to be changed in this year. And, I talked about this right from the beginning of the year. 2024 is going to be the year that humanity decides to stand up, face the darkness, and save our species or not. And once the dam breaks, then it's all going to come crashing down. And there are so many cracks in the dam right now, so many holes being punched. The rats are fleeing the ship. Now is not the time to be lost in despair or hopelessness. I've said this lots on the show here, guys. Hopeless or hopeful. It's a choice. They both will give you very different results, but it's a choice that we have to make. We can be hopeful and work towards that, or hopeless and give up and accept. That's the choices. Those are ours to make. And this is one of those times where we cannot be afraid. We have to just have faith and combine that with a little bit of action. And once you start taking the baby steps, we're getting more and more steps. And we absolutely have them on the ropes. Now is not the time to sit back and relax. So this is good. This is the good beginning of the good times of the chaos. And Michael is a rare gem that continues to maintain my faith. I'm going to get him on a show yet.
For this to go to committee, once we've had the opportunity to have this debate, but then we're going to deal with another issue affecting
I think they're coming.
Their government, further paralyzing Parliament. And that deals with the employment minister, this Liberal Prime Minister's minister from Edmonton, who, along with his pandemic profiteering
More justice
business partner, have this unbelievable.
Add a hashtag to that. Hashtag Banana Canada.
You, Speaker, about the rights of democratically elected members to get fulsome, honest answers and information from individuals that are sent for by this place. Again, a right of this House to send for people.
We've been using those words here for a long time, Mark.
And in that case, the individual, the business partner.
I just like to pontificate and talk about all the different facets of it in different ways from time to time.
Refused to provide information on who, quote, other Randy.
Canada is the cottage country for the old swamp.
Because it strikes at the heart of a matter that's incredibly important to Canadians.
He's tactful,
We learned that
incredibly articulate and tactful.
Liberal minister from Edmonton Centre, his business, while he's serving in cabinet, of which he owned a 50% share,
More justice,
was awarded a contract by his own government. Well, that's not okay.
Michael Barrett so far is the tops on my list there. The other ones do good stuff too.
2022 in particular. Why is 2022 important? Because his business partner said the minister hadn't been in touch with him either for that year. Okay, well, we'll take the minister at his word, case closed, right?
Yep, they're just so honest.
You can trust them as far as you can throw them. We demanded the production of papers. Again,
exactly, Cousin Jody.
And what did we learn? They were texting and they were talking. Why is that a problem? One, because
many of them did.
He said,
the WEF cult.
What the witness said, his business partner, Mr. Anderson, wasn't the truth. What they told the newspaper wasn't the truth. But it also means that a sitting member of the Liberal cabinet was
Anasty, email me, please.
Affairs of his company that was netting Government of Canada contracts worth tens of thousands of dollars. To say nothing of the fact that the service they provided was, as I said, pandemic profiteering. These were like the guys during
preaching to the choir, Mark,
who would go to Costco, buy up all the toilet paper, and then sell it out of their van at the end of the parking lot for
we have price. Donald. Well, we're just trying to grow our army, which is the only army that's actually still growing, right?
They victimized people across Canada getting contracts from all kinds of governments.
Amen,
the name
Steve.
Of a sitting cabinet minister is the co-owner of this.
Yes, that's why I think I'll be able to get him too.
So that's what they've been doing. That's the matter that this house is, the matters this house is seized with, paralyzed by, and it all has to do with conflicts of interest and refusing to follow the law, orders
Bingo.
Of Parliament. So if Canadians have to follow the law, why don't these Liberals? Why don't these Liberals? And I do get asked often by Canadians. They want to know why it is the RCMP won't finally investigate. And here we have a letter from the commissioner of the RCMP dated October the 9th. And it reads in part that I wish to inform you that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police investigation into SDTC is ongoing. Now, SDTC, Sustainable Development Technologies Canada, which operated under governments of different stripes up until 2017 with a clean bill of health from Canada's Auditor General. So Stephen Harper absolutely oversaw this fund. You know, you hear the Liberals say Conservatives don't want to take any action on environment. Here we are with this clean tech business with $1 billion of Canadian tax money, looking to help startups and innovators in the clean tech space. We think it's incredibly important that we solve issues facing our environment, facing our climate with technology, not a tax on everything that we know that in my province of Ontario is going to cost families $1,400 more than they get back in the fake phony rebates that these Liberals talk up. So we have this fund, SDTC, Clean Bill of Health by the Auditor General up to 2017. But it's after that when the trouble sets in. This Liberal Prime Minister appoints his choice, a Liberal chair of the fund. Well, guess what?
They're on the bad guys list, both of them, sorry.
The Liberal Prime Minister found guilty of breaking ethics laws twice. What do you think happened when he put his hand-picked selection in his chair? Well, here come the conflicts of interest, 186 of them. And $400 million that we know about. This is really important because the Auditor General
He's representative.
didn't look into 100% of the deals done and the votes cast at
That's
the
one way to
$1
stop
billion
things.
slush fund.
Defund them.
But of the cases they looked into, the Auditor General and her army of auditors found that there were conflicts in 80% of them.
True fact. They need
80%.
to be Canadian.
There's no other organization in the world that when they find out that one of their subsidiaries is rife with corruption and alleged criminality, that
We have to remind them.
for the documents to the RCMP.
Because if we don't, Black Bloc will.
Committee. There's no other organization that would do that unless they've got something.
You're
to hide.
lucky.
What do they have to hide?
Put in a good word for me.
Well, I think we know. It's all the things they don't want the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to see. They're worried that the King's Cowboys are going to ride in.
Boom!
And find all
King's
kinds of
Cowboys.
deals
I
with
love that.
insiders getting rich while Canadians were lined up at food banks in record numbers. It's StatsCan. StatsCan this week said that income inequality in this country has reached a point never seen before since they started measuring it in the history of our country. It's StatsCan who said that 1 in 4 Canadians don't know where their next meals are going to come from. And I think that that's really important.
Thank a Liberal.
The unemployment rate in this country isn't 25% or 1 in 4. So that means that you have millions of Canadians who are going to work, and in between the shift at their first job and the start of their shift at their second job, they've got to make a stop at the food bank so they can afford to feed themselves and their children. That's life after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister. And it's not that they've been spending money to help Canadians get ahead. They've been spending money to make sure that Liberal insiders live large.
Bingo.
We saw it with their $60 million Arrive scam. We see it in this case of the $400 million at their green slush fund, Sustainable Development Technologies Canada, which of course, when confronted with the problem, they denied it, and then they folded it, only to pull it underneath the industry minister who wasn't turning over documents to the police. We saw it when the Prime Minister tried to reward his buddies at the We organization, Mark and Craig Kielburger. We saw it when he tried to help his friends at SNC Lavalin with a get out of jail free card, and when he got called out by his own Attorney General. How did he treat Miss Wilson-Raybould, an experienced Crown prosecutor? How did he treat her? He fired her. He threw her under the bus. And when the health minister, an experienced physician, stood up and said what was happening was wrong, what did he do to that second woman in his caucus who spoke out against him? He threw her under the bus too. Because it's all about liberal insiders. And when he gets a phone call from someone who's getting millions of dollars from his government and says, hey, I've got a big grant that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a couple $1 million. Let's talk about it at my island in the Bahamas.
Like Thanksgiving.
You know what? Bring the president of the Liberal Party with you. Why don't you do that too? We can have a nice conversation about that together. Free trip for himself. But who's picking up the tab? It's always Canadians who are stuck with the bill when it comes to this prime minister who's helping liberal insiders and his well-connected friends to get ahead. So the ask is very simple. One, don't break the law. Okay. Looks like they struggled with that one. So the second ask is, now Parliament, which has the legal authority to order the production of these documents, that is a matter of fact. It's not, the parliamentary secretary can stand up and wave his arms and shout about it, but it's the law, it's the fact, it's a fact. He can not like it. And he says he doesn't like the law. We know that about these liberals. They break the law, they don't like the law, but you know what? We weren't elected to make him happy. We were elected to protect the interests of Canadians who are just struggling to get by. And I've got really good news at the end of what seems like a pretty depressing 20 minutes after a depressing 9 years, is that common sense conservatives have a promise that we've made to Canadians. And that's that life wasn't like this before that Liberal prime minister, and it's not going to be like that after him.
And that's the part that I in his closing speech that I agree with most. Canada will not be like it is underneath of him once he is gone. There's all kinds of people that are going to get their karma. Karma will come into the equation at some point. But it's like one of my favorite quotes lately is that if we fail to deliver on justice, that we can't build a future on injustice. And the tide is turning. The tide is turning in not just here, but everywhere. And again, back to that being hopeful and getting to the good stuff. So now we're going to talk a little bit more of Trudeau's homegrown problems. And I think this is this is one of the big ones that is going to ruin him from the outside. Now, Blender News here just recently found this fella. I don't really know him, don't really know anything about him, but I do really, really like the way his take on this manufactured problem. Again, problem, reaction, solution, right? Trudeau has been busy stealing from us, blaming others, committing crimes and blaming others. And this whole issue with India, this is a Trudeau problem, and we got to stop putting the footing the bill for this problem. So listen to this guy and we'll chew on it afterwards.
India are in a full-blown diplomatic war, trading
Correct.
accusations and expelling each other's diplomats.
Correct.
The situation exploded after the RCMP publicly linked Indian diplomats to drive-by shootings, home invasions, and even assassinations on Canadian soil. What was once a peaceful and stable nation has now been turned into a playground for foreign powers to conduct criminal and terrorist operations. India and Pakistan, in particular, are using Canada as a proxy for their political conflicts, dragging us
Sound familiar
disputes that have
at all?
nothing to do with Canadians. But don't let anyone tell you that this crisis is just geopolitical tension. This is the direct result of Canada being led by Justin Trudeau, a man with a malicious level of incompetence. Foreign violence, political manipulation, and corruption are taking root in our communities, and our leaders have done little to address the growing chaos. So here's everything you need to know about the escalating tensions between Canada and India. The collapse of relations between India and Canada started under Trudeau, who inherited a strong relationship with India from Stephen Harper. Harper's government prioritized these ties, launching free trade agreement talks in 2010 and signing a nuclear deal in 2015. However, by 2016, Trudeau's government stalled these initiatives, frustrating both sides. Trudeau's 2018 visit to India was a full-on disaster when a convicted pro-Khalistan terrorist was invited to an official dinner, an incident that embarrassed Canada and enraged India. And for good reason. India has long viewed the Khalistani movement, which seeks to carve out an independent Sikh state within India, as a grave threat to its sovereignty. Violent insurgencies tied to this movement claimed around 20,000 lives in the 1980s and 1990s. Trudeau's blunder not only exposed...
So let me break that down a little bit. India has an ISIS with turban problem, and Canada has become the safe haven for them, even giving them positions in parliament and, co-opting control of the country. Imagine that, right?
His government's incompetence, but also fueled India's suspicion that Canada is harboring extremists. Despite this embarrassment, Trudeau's government made matters worse by later removing references to extremism from official reports under pressure from pro-Khalistan supporters. It was a clear signal to India that Canada wasn't taking their concerns seriously. Things hit a boiling point in September 2023 when Trudeau accused India of orchestrating the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a leader of the Khalistani separatist movement in British Columbia. In response, Canada expelled 6 Indian diplomats, accusing them of violent criminal activities on our soil. India retaliated by expelling Canadian diplomats, turning diplomatic tensions into a full-on crisis. Nijjar's leadership in the pro-Khalistan movement and India's view of him as a terrorist is at the heart of this dispute. Canada's explosive claim that India orchestrated his assassination triggered this international standoff. And now, as relations deteriorate further, India has withdrawn diplomats and frozen trade talks. What began as political friction has escalated into a covert conflict, with Canada serving as the battleground for foreign disputes.
I believe you're correct, Deanna, among several others.
Becoming a proxy battleground for India and Pakistan didn't happen overnight. It started with Trudeau's disastrous 2018 visit, which exposed how out of control Canada's foreign policy had become. Instead of taking a firm stance, Trudeau's
That's exactly how they see him.
From domestic interest groups tied to the Sikh diaspora began catering to pro-Khalistan forces at the expense of coherent international relations. Pakistan, sensing an opportunity, jumped into the fray. Its intelligence services have been actively backing Khalistani extremists in Canada, not out of solidarity, but as a way to destabilize India. Canada, with its weak intelligence response, has become a target for foreign manipulation. While our government fails to act, both India and Pakistan have embedded themselves in our political
100%.
and social systems, turning our country into a stage for their regional conflict. This level of foreign interference is a glaring failure on the part of Canadian government. CSIS has known about Pakistan's transnational repression operations for years, yet little has been done. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration has had no problem cracking down on these networks, but Canada, we've done nothing. This incompetence has allowed foreign actors to exploit our national security weaknesses, and now Canada is paying the price. It's not just violence that foreign powers have brought to Canada. They've infiltrated our political system too.
Correct.
A 2022 CSIS report revealed that Indian proxies were providing financial support to Canadian politicians, ensuring that candidates sympathetic to India's interests gained power. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a documented reality. One particularly troubling example occurred during the 2022 Conservative leadership race, where Indian operatives allegedly purchased memberships for Pierre Poilievre while undermining Patrick Brown. The influence of these foreign agents is part of a broader strategy that China has been using for years, manipulating Canadian elections by propping up sympathetic candidates within diaspora communities.
Remember when we saw Andrew Scheer sitting down with these guys and making them promises for their votes. So it's not just the Liberal Party that's guilty of this. It, almost all of the parties have members that are guilty of exactly this. To what extreme? This goes back so far, it's unfathomable.
And now India is doing.
And why wouldn't they be? They've seen it work for everybody else, the same as political Islam.
The same. This manipulation could become the final blow to Canada's deteriorating democracy.
You think?
Foreign powers are embedding themselves in our politics, swaying elections, and shaping policies to their benefit, while Canada's leaders look the other way. These external forces act as gatekeepers, controlling who can run for office, all while eroding our sovereignty. The Canadian government, meanwhile, has been paralyzed by political concerns and the fear of alienating powerful voting blocs. CSIS has been sounding the alarm for years, warning of foreign interference from both China and India. But the government's response has been tepid at best, allowing foreign powers to continue to pull the strings in Canada's political landscape. Ordinary Canadians are the ones paying the price for this foreign interference. Assassinations, drive-by shootings, and organized crime have moved from distant geopolitical conflicts.
People getting run down in Calgary Transit because it looks more like a gathering at a terminal in Bali than it does Calgary.
Into our own neighborhoods. Our country is now a battleground for foreign powers, and Canadians are waking up to the grim reality that their government has let this happen. But the damage.
This is, if I was to flip this, invert this script, you know how, say, Russia and the U.S. use Ukraine for their playground to stoke the funding for their military industrial complex. Well, that's basically what China and India and Pakistan are doing with Canada, as well as the Middle East. So we've got literally Hamas, Hezbollah, China, India, Pakistan, all fighting over Canada. Sound familiar, guys?
Goes beyond physical violence. Foreign governments are corrupting our political system, funding politicians, and shaping our elections. This isn't democracy anymore. Our leaders aren't representing Canadians, they're representing the interests of foreign powers.
Exactly. They're all more concerned with the foreign diasporas that are here because we have been replaced. The vote that they're interested in is the foreigners that are now here from all of these little subcultures, and we are irrelevant. That's why they're promising and campaigning on their behalf. So are any of them actually really representative of Canadians? I have to seriously question this. I think we're not going to know that until we remove all of the people that don't belong here, and then we can get to a baseline of who's actually being represented and how.
The Canadian government's inaction has compromised our safety and damaged our international reputation. Once known as a stronghold of diplomacy, Canada is now seen as a weak link in the global fight against transnational crime.
See a comment here from Stefan. India is just it's the same thing. This is that's what I'm trying to make here. It's not just India. This is the performance that Trudeau's been giving at the inquiry. It's when we apply, and I've been saying this for a long time, when we apply the same lens of criminality to all of these different subjects, it's the same thing, and we have to demand more justice.
Canadians are caught in the crossfire, and unless the government starts defending the interests of its own citizens, things are only going to get worse.
I cannot help but agree with the fellow there on that point. Until we get,
I'll be honest with you, I don't know if this is the luckiest man of all time.
Sorry, guys. Automatic play kicked in. So, lot to digest there. And this is, like what Jim McMurtry and I were talking about on Monday. If we don't drop all of the things that divide us and focus on fixing Canada, putting the brakes on some of this global unelected, this coup of Canada, from all of the different directions, using all of the tools at our disposal right now. This is the year. If we do it, if Canada's going to survive, it's got to be done this year. And they can't jail us all now. Down the road, slowly and incrementally, they'll put us all in a gulag. But we have to get ahead of it here now. This is our year to decide. We have to put pressure on the sore spots, on the breaks in the dam while they're still paying attention. There are a few good people still in there that we can work with. And the ones that are worth working with, they're paying attention to us. And the ones that are trying to impose this criminality are quivering. So that tells me we're winning. So we're getting down closer to the end here now. I've got some short clips that I think are highly relevant to the here and now. So we'll start with Bill Maher clip of all people. I never thought I'd ever be playing a Bill Maher clip, but hey, here we are.
Get into the victimhood mentality that is prevalent amongst Gen Z.
The student editors at the Columbia Law Review, they said because the violence of the police clearing left them irrevocably shaken. You're at UCLA. Who raises a child to feel this way?
The question isn't just who raises them to feel this way, it's who educates them to feel this way.
Bingo!
Curriculum in
Boom!
a lot of elite schools. There is the paradigm I spoke of before. There are all of these buzzwords, and that's what produces this in part.
What are the other buzzwords?
Oppressor, oppressed, colonizer, colonized, victim, victimizer. Everything falls into this binary, and if you can claim the top victim status, then you win. And we've known the problems that are going on, this victimhood culture. We've known this for 40 years now, and everyone's been great at diagnosing it, but we haven't solved it. We haven't reversed it. It's just got worse.
Bill Maher and his panel.
So I'm going to play this one again, guys, just because I want everybody to focus on this list, because this is exactly, if you think about the poster we looked at last night, Black Bloc is going to burn down a police station in Toronto next Friday, using all of these same words. And who is driving that Black Bloc bus? The Palestinian bus, the alphabet soup bus, all of these radical Marxist entities that are burning down our country. Let's listen again. Bingo.
Gen Z.
It's not just Gen Z. It's every ideologically marginalized kid churned out of the education system.
The question isn't just who raises them to feel this way, it's who educates them to feel.
There is the root cause of the problem. We're never going to solve the political problem until we solve the educational problem. Remember that all politics runs downstream of culture. Andrew Breitbart, right? So when you hear these people,
I spoke of before, there are all of these buzzwords, and that's what produces this in part.
What are the other buzzwords?
Oppressor, oppressed, colonizer, colonized, victim, victimizer. Everything falls into this binary, and if you can claim
black or white to them
status, then you win. And we've known the problems that are going on, this victimhood culture. We've known this for 40 years now, and everyone's been great at diagnosing it, but we haven't solved it. We haven't reversed it.
No, we haven't yet, but we're getting there. And this is how reestablishing how we live in our entirety with parallel communities and all of the different things that we do that are building outside of the system. We leave the old system and it dies, right? And this is the reality of it. It's not going to come easy. There's no easy button. There's no silver bullet for this, but we start with the kids. We start fixing the problem that these people, the way that they're abusing the kids, and that will help right the ship. The what are they calling them? Gen Alpha, the next gen. Those guys are feral against the woke. You think us Gen Xers are bad? The ones that are surviving this woke education system, they are absolutely way less tolerant than what we are. So now we're going to get into what's going on with this terrorist organization here in Canada. And this is what I've been calling the Trudeau Manufactured Terrorist Program. And we're going to cover this article from the National Post about the Samidoun group, the Vancouver-based terrorist group. prior to October 2023 terrorist attacks in Israel, many may not have heard of Samidoun, although it has existed for more than a decade. So we're going to learn a little bit about this organization, and so you guys can understand what we're talking about, that the groups behind what's happening when they go to burn down the police station in Toronto next Friday, and why they're calling for Antifada death to Canada. So Samidoun has officially been designated a terrorist group in the US and Canada. Happened last week. Since the October 7th Hamas terror attacks, Samidoun has emerged as a major organizer of anti-Israel protests and events in Canada and around the world. It has been targeted by other national governments despite calls from Jewish advocacy groups and the Conservative Party to do so. Canada did not sanction the group until Tuesday. The announcement was made around a week after a Canadian flag was burned at a Samidoun event marking the one-year anniversary of October 7th that also featured chants of death to Canada. Here's everything you need to know about the Vancouver-based Israel organization. Just wait till you meet the lady behind this. You guys are going to go, I remember her, right? So what is Samidoun? Prior to the October 2023 terrorist attacks in Israel, many may not have heard of them. Although it has existed for more than a decade, it was founded in 2011 around the time of a hunger strike in Israel prisons that was organized by a terrorist group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP. You may have heard that acronym thrown around lately. Samidoun's vowed purpose is to support and raise awareness of Palestinian prisoners. More broadly, Samidoun is an activist organization that supports Palestinians and criticizes Israel and organizes rallies and other events. It has chapters in countries around the world. Samidoun seeks to achieve justice for Palestinian prisoners through events, activities, resources, delegations, research, and information sharing, as well as building bridges with the prisoners' movement in Palestine, the group says on its website. Germany's Minister of the Interior said this isn't the group's true purpose. Gee, you think, where have we seen this playbook before, right? Samidoun is an international network which disseminates anti-Israel and anti-Jewish propaganda while claiming to promote solidarity with prisoners in different countries, said Nancy Faeser when Germany banned the group in November last year. It's unknown how many members of the organization has. It organizes various events, including the annual Day of Solidarity with Palestinian political prisoners. Who is in charge of it? Well. Remember this lady? Charlotte Kent is the international coordinator and one of the most public-facing members of Samidoun. She made headlines following rallies at which she praised the Hamas attack of October 7th. More recently, she was feted into Iran for her activism. Kate has been investigated by the Vancouver Police Department for hate speech, although charges have not been laid. Another director of the group is Theyve, a Vancouver activist. Both are listed in Canada's not-for-profit registry as Samidoun's directors. So there it is, the not-for-profit. It's a damn terrorist charity organization with its international director based in Canada. And if you don't remember Charlotte Kate, she went to Iran, got recognized with their highest awards for activism, but if I'm not mistaken, she was also the one that fought to get recognized as a Canadian when she went to help ISIS kill people. And so she's got a long history of this. And what have other countries done? The 2021 Israel designated Samidoun as terrorist entity, arguing that it is a front group for the PFLP. I suggest that it's not just a front group for them, it's also a front group for several of the other organizations working in Canada. In Germany, they were banned after October 7th. Banning the activity of Hamas and Samidoun and dissolving Samidoun in Deutschland will put a stop to such demonstrations of hate in Germany. Fraser said at the time. So the Dutch Parliament also voted this month to designate Samidoun as a terrorist organization, where the allegations the U.S. and Canada have made. Samidoun has officially been designated a terrorist group in Canada, while the United States has declared it a sham charity that operates as a fundraising organ for a terrorist organization, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Now you know who for an entire year has been terrorizing not just Jews, but all fucking Canadians. All Canadians are being terrorized by this growing extremist terrorist organization in Canada. So Samidoun serves as a front for the group in countries where the PFLP is declared a terrorist organization. While the organization ostensibly supports Palestinian prisoners and their family members, in practice, they provide financial support to the sanctioned PFLP, the U.S. Treasury Department said Tuesday in a press release. This is what the gentleman last night was speaking about. Annecy, she's a bona fide, born, again, through and through to the core. She is a Palestinian terrorist. She is just the money harvester, the top victimhood status gatherer. Remember what we just listened to, from Douglas Murray and the other gentleman there? She's the top victim of the totem pole of fundraising for terrorist organizations on behalf of Palestine. So what has Samidoun said about its designation in Canada? In a statement posted to its website on Wednesday, Samidoun denied the allegations made by Canada and the U.S. Samidoun does not have any material or organizational ties to entities listed on the terror list of the United States, Canada, or the European Union, the group said. The group has also argued that this terrorist entity designation is a sign of strength. It's a that's a badge of honor for them to be called a terrorist organization. Wow. It has united millions of people from across the world, and it has united virtually all social movements in every country for the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Struggle, Samidoun said. So they're proud of this. They're wearing it like a badge of honor that they're a terrorist organization. Looking for more victimhood status. So what is the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, is a Marxist-Leninist organization founded by George Habash in 1967. It gained notoriety for airline hijackings in the 1970s and opposes the existence of Israel, preferring a single secular government in the region. So this is exactly the same organization that several of our Canadian politicians are connected to from that region. Coincidence, folks? In any way, shape, or form? Not freaking likely. It also makes up a large component of the PLO. I guess I wasn't wrong. Alongside Fatah, the political party to which Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian National Authority, belongs. Additionally, the PFLP is responsible for a number of terrorist attacks in Israel and the assassination of Israeli tourism minister Rahavim Zevi in 2001. Canada designated the PFLP a terrorist organization in 2003. So we literally have terrorists roaming the streets, designated operating as charities, raising money to support terrorist acts literally all over the world. And yesterday, I think it was, they announced that no, they weren't mistaken in the terminology that they used. They want death to Canada, death to the USA. And somehow or another, they aren't on a plane headed right back to whence they came. WTF, Canada. This can no longer be acceptable. Canada has got to extricate ourselves from this terrorist control all the way to the highest levels of our government. Now, if I'm going to be shattering worldviews and triggering people, I think it's, why not a little Candace Owens, who's brave enough to bite off some good battles once in a while. And this one kind of hit home with me a little bit because people don't want to, when you think about the victimhood that they're all trying to get to the top of, we've got all of these Marxist ideologies capturing our educational institutions, and it doesn't matter what color of costume they put on, whether it's the Indian extortionists, the East Indian extortionists, the Muslim extortionists, the the Banderas extortionists. They're all screaming for reparations and victimhood, leveraging victimhood, pointing at a time in history that worked for them. I thought you guys might enjoy this 1-minute clip from Candace.
Today in Africa, there are close to 700,000 slaves, but they are not being enslaved by white people. They are being enslaved by other Africans. Human trafficking, forced labor all exist within the same sub-Saharan region that the transatlantic slave trade took place. African bodies are not being purchased by any country of predominantly white men. Colin never mentioned that in Ghana today, 20,000 children live in slavery to support the fishing industry along Lake Volta. In fact, it was leftist network CNN that covered the story last year when a boy was rescued from slavery and had explained to them that while in captivity, he was made to work tirelessly, and that if the famished children were caught trying to eat the fish, they were beaten so senselessly that they wished that they had never been born.
Kind of like the lithium mines and the diamond mines and all of those places that we get accused of being the colonizers of. Sound familiar?
Why didn't Colin mention any of this? Why haven't any of the alleged courageous leaders on Black issues of oppression mentioned any of this? Because they aren't leaders at all. They're all extortionists. Today,
bingo. It's all about the victimhood, extortion, and they have leveraged our education systems to manifest that. And wash, rinse, repeat. Same costume, different or same pattern, same process. Zelensky's NATO ultimatum: either they give Ukraine membership in NATO or we're going to have a nuclear war. That's Zelensky's ultimatum to the UN and the world. And that is an incredibly dangerous delusion. And this is the last clip I've got for you guys tonight on why I think that's such a dangerous delusion, because we've all been hoodwinked into this false sense of security. And this 1 minute will say a lot.
A ballistic missile launched from a launch pad outside Moscow takes 26 minutes and 40 seconds to get to Washington, D.C. We can't shoot down ballistic missiles, long-range ballistic missiles, with any kind of certainty or accuracy. So there's 3 phases of a ballistic missile. The interceptor system is designed to take out the missile in mid-course phase. We have 44 interceptors.
44.
We have 1,700, let's say, nuclear missiles on ready for launch. Russia has about the same. We have 44 interceptor missiles. How 44. Are 44 interceptor missiles going to go up against more than 1,000 Russian nuclear weapons coming at us? Never mind the fact that each interceptor has a 50% shoot down.
So you got 22.
When nuclear war begins, it only ends in nuclear Armageddon.
Jesus. I don't know how much more succinct it can be stated that these captured governments have to be brought to heel, and it's only going to happen by the mass will of the people. Right? There is no such thing as a nuclear war. It is a nuclear ending. That's it. End of. And some might last a little longer in their bunkers, but I don't think they're going to, I don't think it saves their sanity or their humanity either. So that's kind of the dark side tonight, guys, and why I hope you guys had a lot to drink from the hopeful cup today in this mad implosion of the Liberal Party and the corruption. That's what we need to be focusing our energy on, and understand that when we hear from these meat muppets like Zelensky, and I don't, I didn't want to bring this up to drive fear. Their insanity only lives if we give it life, right? So we have to end these. Like I said, we have to take back humanity. It's going to be happen this year. I'm stoked. God wins, and you know, all of these things. Now, the more we know, the easier it is to categorize the priorities, right? So that's a wrap for tonight, folks. I didn't keep you 2 hours. Last night was incredibly long. Tomorrow night, of course, make sure to tune in for Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce, where we will, I'm sure, dive into a whole bunch more of the world's insanity, as well as Bryce is there every Friday to give folks answers to whatever questions they may have about getting through the upcoming crisis with most of their, you know, in the best way possible for them, specializing in how to protect yourselves from the banks, from the crooks, and from the insanity that's coming up. So I hope you guys had fun here tonight. I hope you guys learned a little bit. I hope you guys are helped, got a little help with clearing some of the air around some of the insanity, and we can get together and seek a little more justice in Banana Canada, and start with scrapping C293, and make sure you get plugged in on the Substack, folks. And once again, for everybody out there, if you've got something really important, I did get some great emails in the last couple of days. It's been tough to respond to everybody, but that is the best way to get a hold of me. You're not going to reach me on the social media platforms as much as you try. I appreciate that, but there's no way I can manage to keep up to all of that. But God bless you guys anyways. Support your local journalists, support the people that are sticking their head above the parapet and fighting for the truth for everybody, because at the end of the day, truth is the only path to building a future that is real. We cannot build a future on injustice. So support your favorite journalist, whoever that might be, wherever that might be, that's doing the work. This is the best way to help. There's less cuts that everybody takes. Most of it comes to me. All of it comes to me through donate at whatsupcanada.org, but Substack is a great way to help out as well. So we're getting some folks getting a few more every week that are choosing the option of the paid subscription at, I think it's $8 a month, 50 cents a show. Helps keep this free for everybody without advertising and commercials and subsidies or all of that stuff. So I love you guys all. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. And it's the last time I get to talk about this week about my favorite partners over at Patriot Switch, who put their money where their mouth is when it comes to fighting the cabal. And between a couple million of us, we're taking billions away from Procter & Gamble, Unilever, BlackRock, State Street, all those guys. So I love the stuff. I love the company. I don't get a call center every single time that I've called into Patriot Switch. For even the most trivial of things, it's somebody just like us. It's probably an American sitting at home, just helping folks get better stuff, less poison, and helping them help others. So it's a pay it forward kind of gig. I love these guys. So you'll find them on our website too. So yeah, stay mighty, friends, family, patriots, prisoners, and hostages. We'll see you tomorrow.